Diablo players, check out this number over here. We're hitting for 900 billion damage. And the thing that's important with this is we do not have any mythics. This is very realistic gear for everyone to actually achieve. And I wanted to go ahead and drop this video. Well, yes, you can actually make this build hit for trillions of damage. I wanted to focus in on a video guide that is very, very achievable for your average Diablo player. So let's go ahead and go over the easy version of the game with no mythics. Is 100% going to be able to overpower on the hits, as long as, of course, you're hitting enemies. It's going to have 100% chance to overpower, and the reason why it does require that enemy to be hit is because that's how you're going to be generating resource. I'm going to answer a bunch of the frequently asked questions, but this one is going to mainly focus in on, again, realistic setups, because while you can get way more damage with the Shroud of False Death and perfect aspects, heck, this build could actually hit for trillions with the exact same gear with just better aspects, as well as getting more perfect masterworking. The gear that I have is relatively mediocre here, but this is going to be a really great build for a lot of people to maybe build into what they actually want to. And I want to give you guys a few other updates, as there have been other discoveries. There's bugs that have existed in the Spirtborn that have not been changed, so let's go ahead and update the build as there's newer discoveries. So for starters, as far as the gameplay goes, this is going to be mainly a Quill Volley skill. This is what's going to be dealing majority of our damage. And then we're going to have Ravager here, and this is just utilized so we can teleport towards the enemy, but it also gives us a bunch of resources. And then we also run the Hunter. This gives us more damage. And then we run Armored Hide. This is going to give us survivability. And on top of that, we have Scourge to get even more damage. You could also play Vortex here, or you can play Vortex instead of Counterattack, but I do really like Counterattack. It can give you some extra damage, plus it also gives you a little bit more survivability. Getting that ability to just have 10% chance to just not take damage is actually quite big, because how the build is designed is specifically not really requiring maximum resistances, because resistances don't matter as much in Season 6, especially with the Spirtborn. So you may feel a little bit squishy without this thing. It actually makes a pretty big difference to basically have 10% more chance to just not take any damage. It's very, very massive. And then for our Spirit Hall, we're going to be running Jaguar, and then we're going to be running Gorilla. The nice thing with Gorilla is once we have 5 stacks of Resolve, we are going to be unstoppable. You can see in the gameplay we have 25. People can get like 50 stacks of Resolve. You can go crazy with the Resolve stacks, which will also give you more damage. But the thing is that I wanted this to be a realistic version of it, because it's basically half of what the min-max version can actually go for. And I wanted to make a video guide because I get asked all the time, hey, I want to make a Spirtborn build, see people hitting for trillions, but I'm not able to do it. And the reality is that I will give you guys that guide. However, most people will not be interested in playing 30 hours a day to try to get those triple masterworking. That's the real big key to getting that massive amount of damage. And then on top of that, your gear needs to be multiple greater affix. It's, again, unrealistic. And again, the point of this video is to give you a realistic build. And this is really important to be able to do Pit 100, because it's going to allow you to level up all of your glyphs. And then if you really want to, you could push even higher, or you can maybe make a different build. We're going to be doing the Evade version as well as the Gorilla version, but this is going to be one of the easiest builds to actually complete Pit 100 with, because while Gorilla can arguably do it faster, it requires so much better gear that, again, realistic stats here is what I wanted to focus in on. So for gear, again, no mythics here. We're running Harmony of Ebiwaka. I don't even happen to have this thing fully masterworked because it's not even a GA. In fact, I don't even have GA on every single piece of gear. That's, again, the main thing that I want to focus in on. So for starters, Ebiwaka over here, the reason why it's really important, it gives you a damage multiplier for all of the different spirit tags. Since we are using an Eagle skill, we also now get Jaguar, and then we also get Gorilla because of Ebiwaka. That's going to be, if we get a good roll, that's up to 90x damage. That's massive. Plus, it gives us damage reduction, which is great, and movement speed, and all stats. Those are all great things. If you can masterwork to get damage reduction, it's cool, but it is not required. That's the big thing I want to stress in this video. All the masterworking is relatively loose. It's not like you have to hit it, otherwise the build doesn't work. And then we're running Interdiction on our chest piece. Ideally, we can get resistances, armor, dexterity. These are all good stats anywhere. And then we also want to put on Barrier Generation, and we want maximum Resolve stacks. I literally have plus 1 blue on it. It's basically, we master worked it one time. It's just, it got unlucky, and that's the way it goes sometimes, right? Like I said, I want to keep this build to be really realistic for most players. Then we have redirected force. You can get ranks to Quill Volley, you can get armor, you can get resistances. There is another variant with like chance to restore. That is another option to play. However, I want to keep this one, again, relatively beginner friendly, because that's really pushing the min-maxing. But ranks to Quill Volley, attack speed, those are really great stats to go ahead and actually look for. And then if you get resistances, hey, that's cool too. Or armor, just again, make sure you're armor capped. You want 1000 armor. The resistances, it's a nice little icing on the cake, but not really required here. We're going for overpowered damage and extra barrier generation. And then we want the optional here, we can play Forest Power if we want this chance to make a Mystic Circle, which can increase our armor and resistances. If you kind of want some more survivability and more damage, you can go for this. Now, there is another thing that you can play, and I want to go over this really quick because it's important here. So this one gives us more block for extra survivability, but it also gives us damage because we gain increased critical strike equal to our block chance. But there's two over here. There's one that I can actually recommend as well, called Binding Morass, which is kind of the same thing. It gives you survivability and damage because this will actually slow down the enemies if we're close, and if we deal indirect damage to them, we're going to be able to get an extra 20. So it doesn't really matter. Choose whatever one that you want. If you want to play Mystic Circles, that's fine. If you want to play Binding Morass, whatever one. They both kind of give you damage and survivability. It's up to you, because more barriers actually more damage as well. Then we run the Duelist aspect. This one, I do not have it perfect. In fact, this is one of the things, it's like 20 billion gold to get this. I've been really trying to farm for it, but like it's just so hard to get those again perfect aspects. In fact, in my gameplay, I have no perfect aspects, which is again great for, you know, having relatability with this version of the build. But yeah, definitely try to get movement speed on your boots, armor, resistances, life. Those are all great stats, and then barrier generation. And then for the Rod Akipilike, so there's actually an update where this thing actually functions properly. It was bugged before, although there's like 3 different bugs with this. There is still a bug that got a buff that got fixed. So the bug was that your chance for core skills to hit twice, it would not actually work. That actually is a huge loss in DPS. It also procs the Jaguar thing a little bit more frequently, but specifically getting this to be masterwork is ideal, but you can also get the maximum resource greater affix. Either one, it doesn't really matter, because you do want a greater affix on your weapon for sure, but the one that it hits, the only one that's like really bad is ranks to velocity. You do not have to have the GA on maximum resource. That is something that's very important. In this version of the build, we're actually not going to require 275. There is a bug that currently still exists in the game, and it will give you 35 resource when you actually attack. So how it works is you need to at least hit 240. That's the magic number. Once you're at 240, you're going to be good to go. Whether you need to pop a resource potion for this or run whatever items that you need to run, you want to hit at least 240 to activate the Banished Lord's Talisman, the special ability where it spends 275. Now, I was running Midday Hunt for a while, and I was actually recommending this for a lot of people because before you get to 240, that can really ease the transition. But if you already have that point where, let's say you masterwork the Rod of Kipuleke, not even greater affix, just getting that up in terms of the masterworking can really help out to reach that 240. Now, if you want to go to 275, sure, that's possible. And I've actually hit like 400 if you want to run Midday Hunt and a lot of really high stuff, but again, I want to keep this video realistic. I'm not running any of those crazy things here. This one over here, eventually they will probably patch this and you will need 275, but as of now, it works. So 240 is the magic number. Anything beyond that still helps though, because remember, Rod Akipilike has that ability where it's going to spend all your resource and deal bonus damage based on every single percent that you have, like more, every like numerical stat. And then we're running Midnight Sun. So this one over here is so incredibly good. Now, I've tried the one with the other resource. It is possible to get higher numbers temporarily with that, but overall, I think this is going to really smooth the transition with the process here. Being able to make sure to get that high roll on the when you critically strike, you gain whatever. That is a really big thing to have that high roll. The rest of the stats do not matter. You don't even need a GA. Mine is not GA in the gameplay. So that is the important thing to mention. Now, if you can get a greater affix, dexterity, cooldown, crit, just Mirage is kind of the one that's like whatever. But basically, this is what you actually want to go ahead and have. And then we also have the aspect of the Moonrise. So this will give us a lot more damage and more attack speed. Attack speed is actually kind of key with this build. That's why we definitely want to try to get attack speed if we can get it on our gloves. And over here, the reason why we want extra attack speed on our ring as well is that we want attack speed because it's going to have the special bonus on the Midnight Sun. When we crit, we regain 20 to 50% of the vigor that we spent in the last 2 seconds. The faster we're attacking, the more times it's activating. Hopefully that kind of makes some sense. So it's really easy to hit for all those orange numbers, but you know, sometimes in between packs when you're walking, it might not be up, but it's totally fine because the only time that it matters is when you're actually attacking. You guys are seeing, by the way, all the gameplay is strictly pit 100. That was the point of this video, is like the easiest pit 100 build in the entire game. Like this one by a long shot is definitely it. And then we're running Tam and Zal over here. So maximum life is actually pretty important for the build, as more HP equals more damage because we are overpowering, and that is essentially really important here. And then we're also running Pot Q. This is how we actually generate barrier. Ideally we get about 120% of our bonus to barrier. That can be on the Paragon board, that can be on your masterworking, on your gear and tempering, where you get barrier generation over in like the chest piece. You can get it in the gloves. It's considered in the utility category, but yeah, you definitely want to get that extra barrier because more barrier equals more survivability and more damage because you get that bonus to it. And then if you don't happen to have these, well, you can run emeralds, but and then we're running amethyst for extra barrier generation. And then again, armor cap first. Once your armor is capped, depending on, you know, where you get armor, where you get resistances, then you can go into resistances. Ideally, like honestly, like 30 to 50% resistances is kind of what you're shooting for. You do not need to max out at all. Now eventually once you get to the Paragon, you can cap out, but if you're really desperate for resistances, you feel like you're too squishy, Yen's Blessing or Rakanal's Wake, those boots will significantly increase your survivability if you want to max out resistances. And then we are going to go into the skill tree now. I'm going to go make it a little bit bigger so you guys can see it, just in case, you know, shout out to my mobile viewers. All right, so the first 2 points literally do not matter because we do not use a basic skill. Well, at least not really. Technically, Quill Volley gets converted to a basic skill, and to kind of answer the question how we have infinite resource, it's because it converts on Rada Kipilike with its special ability to make it so our core skills now count as basic skills. So we get the basic skill damage over here, and we're going to get Vigorous. Now, depending on your resources, you may want to put more points. If you happen to have like a bad roll on your ring, specifically the Midnight Sun, then you do want to put in more points. It's just kind of up to you. My suggestion would be go to the training dummy and make sure your resources always are at 275 in terms of like its spending. You'll see that there's a buff bar. Let me see if you can see this. See where it says 275 and it just goes pretty much right back to 275. Unless you're not hitting anything. If you're hitting the air, then yeah, it's going to have to build up. But as long as you're hitting enemies, you want to make sure it's always at 275. If you see it kind of like ramping up, like it goes to like 100 and like 100 and something, and then it gets to 275 while you're hitting, that is very important, then you may want to put in 2 extra points in here. But anyways, we're just getting some extra damage over here. You don't need the velocity over here. The resource gen is kind of memes because it requires you to move, and when you're attacking, well, you're not moving. And then over here, we're just going to get this extra damage while unhindered or unstoppable. We have 100% unstoppable. This is why I actually kind of like this build more than a lot of other builds, is because it has 100% unstoppable, which means we can sit in the giant like freeze AoE. We never get fear. We never get slowed, stunned. We don't have to worry about any of that. Knocked out, like there is 0 of that because we have the gorilla. And how it works is once you have 5 of the stacks, you're just not going to be, you're going to be immune to everything. It's like we're playing Diablo 3 where we just have permanent like immunity. Now you can get some damage reduction if you want to get diminishment, but we're just looking for more damage over here. We're going to be running this so we can get the teleports. And then this is a key thing that really helps out the build. Fueled, do not skip out on the 1 point. There's so many builds that I've seen that don't play this, and if you don't want to, sure, but like this is what makes this build so much better and why I almost never really need to pop potions. This is how I'm healing. I'm not running life on hit. Life on hit, life regen, these are literally garbage stats that the game legitimately needs to throw away. I've given Blizzard that feedback. Getting like 30 life on hit as a GA in like the end game is like, what the hell is this number? Or we get like, I don't know, what is it, like 20 life per 5 seconds? Like, and I'm talking greater affix. Like this thing is based on a percent, so it's really great. Yeah, this one's awesome to have. It really keeps you up. And then over here we're running counterattack. If you want to drop these points in this, that's totally fine. You want to run vortex, that's another great skill if you want to group up enemies. But I really like this for the extra survivability. I feel like it is definitely worth mentioning. But again, completely drop it if you want to. And then we're getting this extra block chance over here. And then if you want to put points into auspicious, that is cool too. Totally up to you. And then we're running a Scourge just for extra damage. And then over here, we're getting Brilliance because, you know, more damage. This one's really good because, well, you can just execute stuff. And then we have extra damage, which is in every single build. Then we max out all of the ultimate stuff. This one is really key. Spiritual Attunement. It's going to give you extra vigor. And then we have the Hunter. And then just like every Spiritborn build, because Prodigy's Tempo is the most overpowered thing in the game. Like, that thing is so busted, man. It's crazy for the amount of cooldown reduction that you get. All right, now moving on to the Paragon Board. So starting right off, we're going to be getting Spirit. Now, even though this is technically where we would be at Paragon 300, you don't need to put all the points into Dexterity. Just get like the bare minimum, and then eventually start filling the things out as, well, 300 Paragon is really like rough to actually grind for. You see in the gameplay we're 243, so about 220 is where the build really feels like kind of complete. But anything after that, then you can start getting all the blue and the yellow nodes that are kind of a little bit farther away, or like extra small additives. So Spirit is the first board, and then we're going to be running into Menagerist. And the reason why we want this is because it gives us bonus to magic nodes, which we want all this bonus to magic resource and the extra bonus damage here. And then the rest really doesn't matter too much in the order because you have the Ebiwaka helmet because it gives you all stats. But then we're going to go into Vicious Shield and Talon. That's why more barrier is more damage. So it's like you get more survivability and damage. You really can't ask for more. But don't feel like you have to grab these nodes or even these nodes if you don't happen to actually have them. Get those later. Again, the main important thing is you get the glyph and then you get the legendary node. And then we go into Convergence with Colossal over here. Now, there's been some interesting new discoveries with this, and I want to go over that. So we're going to be running Colossal over here. More Resolve equals more damage. That's why we want to temper that on, because it's going to be kind of like the most bang for our buck here. However, with this node Convergence, it's supposed to work with non-physical damage because that increases all of your damage. The game is actually bugged and that doesn't register. So how we actually fulfill that bonus is actually going to be with the thing that gives us bonus damage on lightning damage. So otherwise, we would actually want to throw in Canny. If they fix this, I will update it in the planner, but currently it is bugged, so we have to play Fulminate to get this bonus other, like, non-physical. Non-physical should work with all the damage types, but for whatever reason, this does not function properly. Like, there's all this non-physical. The actual number that you need to hit, if you're wondering, is 75 on any of the two. So that can be 75 poison, fire damage. It doesn't matter. But it doesn't work right now. So hopefully that will be fixed later. If you want to run Rakanal's Wake, that would actually fulfill the requirements already. But it's bugged right now. And then we have Fulminate over here, and well, we already talked about this, but this is over here with Revealing, and this is going to give us extra chance to knock down those vulnerable enemies, and then we get to actually deal some bonus increased damage to crowd-controlled enemies, and we are going to crowd control. Well, you could actually roll one of the utility slots to do it, but because we actually use Scourge over here, it's going to slow them, and we actually crowd control them via the slow on one of the Binding Morass, or if you want to run the circle, you can get extra survivability and damage that way. Up to you. It's kind of up in the air. I'd probably recommend just Binding Morass, that way you don't have to generate the circle, but I just want to mention that one as well. That's another great option. There is a Mystic Circle build, but I want to focus this one in on this variant over here, which is, again, supposed to be super relatable. Everyone can achieve this. There's no mythics. There's not anything in here in the gameplay that I have that is triple masterwork, which is really key, because when you're seeing a lot of these streamer builds, I totally get it, and while I personally have a Shroud of False Death, I don't have it equipped. I just wanted to give you guys a realistic, easy Pit 100, and this is probably one of the best Pit 100 builds that everyone can achieve. Now, if you're really a speed demon, I will also link this down below. The Gorilla build can do Pit 100 way faster. However, it requires so much good gear. It's a 30 hours a day, unrelatable build for a lot of players. Okay, just trying to keep expectations realistic, and that was the whole goal. I know I mentioned it several times, but someone's gonna be like, you know, you can get more damage by going into the Mystic Circle Jaguar. Yes, but then you have to sit in there, and while it is good to go ahead and say, Mom, I got really good damage on this one, one frame. Realistically, if you're going to try to go through the whole pit, you don't want to sit there, wait for the Mystic Circle, and then screenshot the number, right? So, while that one can do more damage, realistically, you kind of want to move around the map a little bit faster, and this is kind of why I would suggest this one to be one of the easiest Pit 100 builds for most players. Anyways, that's going to wrap it up. If you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like on it. If you're new here, hit subscribe to the bell, and I'll update you guys with some other builds, as I kind of want to move out of the meta and try out a little bit more fun things. But if you do want one of the most meta builds for, again, pushing, I will also link a couple other other variants down below, as well as the gorilla build, which is really fun, but again, it just requires so much good gear if you want to do pit 100, and the reason why it's important is, well, you're going to have to level up your glyphs some way, and not every single build can do it, and this one can do it with ease. But anyways, take care, and I'll catch you guys in the next video, and check the pin or in the link in the bio if you're watching this TikTok for the link for the planner.